Okay, so the first one was a dream. The second one is always be a student. You know, it's interesting. I look back when I was younger, and I was a terrible student when I was a student. I just was there. I showed up to be there, you know, because I had to go to school. But it wasn't until I found something that really intrigued me that I wanted to learn how to do it. I became a cabinet maker, and I wanted to eventually own my own cabinet shop and everything. So at the age of 18 to 19, I worked for a cabinet shop, but from 19 on, I worked for myself. I've never worked for another person after that. But I wanted to do it. I learned how to build cabinets. I learned how to do all the different phases of cabinetry, from installing, building, laying out, design, measuring, everything. Even staining, just you name it, making doors, all that stuff. Because it was important to me. Does that make sense? Now, today, being a student could be a lot of different things for all of us. I mean, it could be learning how to get ourselves on social media, learn how to do it properly, business etiquette, how to build relationships, shake hands, you know, engage in conversations, close a sale. All these things are part of being a student. Does that make sense? So you can't just, most of us, if not all of us in this room here, we're an expert at what we do, right? We are an expert. And so being an expert at what we do doesn't mean we're done. Did I make sense on that one?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're done. It means that okay, now we got that behind us. Now we got to go sell the job. We got to sell ourselves. Okay. So the third thing is always read. This, I mean, I was so proud of myself. I read one book my entire career in high school. All 3.5 years of high school, because I graduated midterm, right? And I read one book. It's called The Man Who Never Was. And I was never going to read another book ever. I swore on my mom's grave, I'm never going to read another book. Well, I didn't until I got involved in this personal development part of my life, right? And what happened was the guy that introduced me to the business, he gave me a shoebox of books, brand new books. And I thought, what a dummy, why is he giving me these books? They're brand new. I don't even read, you know? And there was a book in there called The Uncommon Freedom. The title of the book caught my attention. I grabbed the book, I opened it, I started reading, and the next day I was finished. I never stopped reading the book until I finished the book. And the reason it was so intriguing to me was because it said Uncommon Freedom. It was talking about people who built a lifestyle for themselves through that company, right? And I was thinking to myself, this is what I want. And from that day forward, I started reading books. And we were taught to read 15 to 30 minutes every day. Every day. Because they said leaders are readers and readers are leaders, right? They said that by this personal development, by growing and learning. But they didn't just give us books on personal development, they gave us autobiography books. And the reason I'm telling you this right now is because we're going to introduce what's called the Book of the Month Club. We're going to do it. And it's not that far away. It could be a few weeks away to a month max. But imagine if everybody in Successful Thinkers is on the same wavelength. We're all reading the same book, and we're talking about something in that book that affected us. Something that affects you might affect Vivian differently. Maybe you might not even pick up on it, but you pick up on it because you heard her say something, or the second time you read through it. If you read a book more than once, I typically don't. Okay, but I love hearing what other people have to say. And I go, really, which page was that on? So, but the power in reading. So I went from reading one book. If you go in my garage, you know what those office boxes, the white office boxes are? Probably have about 800 books in there. They're all paperback books. And here's a guy who was never going to read. But I couldn't stop because reading was part of getting me where I needed to go. Does that make sense? And so I never dreamed I could read that many books. No way. Okay? So reading. The next one, number 4, is we used to say, there's a few, at least, okay, I might be the oldest person in this room, or almost. But we used to say a tape a day. Oh. I know. Tapes we don't use tapes anymore. Okay, I know, I'm old. But here's my point. We used to say a tape a day keeps poverty away. Yeah. Okay, and let me explain my point on that. So in the books, we're reading self-improvement books and we're reading autobiography books, right? Well, the tapes was a way for our car to become a rolling university. Or in my case, whether I was in my car or in the bathroom or wherever, I was able to listen to stories. And because of technology, now we've got YouTube, we've got DVDs, MP3s and stuff like that. So we're going to start rolling out between MP3s and YouTube the ability for you to download or watch on YouTube interviews. Remember I mentioned the interview? I finally figured out, okay, how am I going to get the interviews of people from successful thinkers? Not people that didn't contribute to successful thinkers. Because everything about successful thinkers is about building a family. And when you think about it, if you build relationships, aren't you building an extension of your family? And so in successful thinkers, as you build relationships, you're building an extension of your family who are what? Perhaps they're going to buy a product, perhaps refer you, and so on and so forth. And by the way, who's usually the first people you're going to go talk to about your product or service? But your family, right? Or your close friends. And so what we're doing is I'm going to allow those people that are contributing to successful thinkers that have a story that we can do an interview on and make it available to everybody in successful thinkers. And not once a month, but multiple times a month. Because I really believe that sometimes, if you look back at your life on a weekly basis, I mean, we have highs and we have lows. Every sales organization that I'm aware of tries to have a weekly meeting. You know why? Because at the end of every week, most of us have been hit pretty hard. Correct? Mm-hmm. And so if we're in the process of constantly watching or listening, we can convert them to MP3 so you can download MP3, right? It gives you the opportunity to grow on a daily basis. I used to listen to 2 tapes a day. I've listened to over 8,000 talks. Some of them, for me, I would listen to the same tape. I don't like to read books twice, but I would listen to tapes that really got me. They said certain things, the speaker would, just because they're talking from their gut, they're talking from their heart. It's not all about just principles, they're talking about their life. And some of those would make you laugh, but some of those made you cry. And there was at least 3 times that I was interviewing people when I was doing my interviews. And the first one that it happened, there's a gal here in Rockland. She owns a day spa, and she started her own skincare line. And so when I was interviewing her, I learned about her story, right? I was all excited. It's a very beautiful 26-year-old gal, right? And I said, well, tell me about your past. Tell me what caused you to be so focused and motivated to do this. And she began to tell me her story. And she said, well, my family came over from Vietnam, and we were split up. They were split up on the boat, so half the children went on one boat and the other half went on another boat. The dad was on that boat, the mom was on this. And I said, well, why would you do that? And she says, well, because in case one of the boats was captured. And in her case, her family's case, one of the boats was captured, and their family was put in prison for 5 years. And then she told me the story about how, she was born after that fact, but all the other kids were already born. And that how they lived in one small apartment. And I said, well, what caused you to want to break out and do this? And then she told me her story. It was a pretty amazing story, really amazing story. And